Coming to you live from Denver, Colorado, the Mile High City. Welcome to the Sports Wagering Zone. This beginning Monday, beginning of the week, Monday Night Football. We got Thursday Night Football coming up. Full schedule yesterday, a lot to talk about. Let's get started. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. We're coming to you live right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. We're also podcasting on most of your major podcast platforms, such as Google Podcast or Apple, iHeartRadio. You listen to it, we're there. We're very, very easy to find. Anyway, thanks for listening. Like I said, we're coming to you live from the Mile High City right here in Denver, Colorado. Denver, who had a great day yesterday against the New York Giants, so the fans in Denver are very, very happy. You know, it's the first game that they won in September for the past 3 years. That's just give you an idea of how bad they have been and how much of an improvement that they've made so far going into this season. They're already much better than they have been the past few years. So that's the story there, but there's a lot to talk about. Again, we're going to be talking about NFL football. We're going to talk about tonight's Monday night game between the Raiders and the Ravens down there in Las Vegas. This is a Monday night game. Very well attended. Of course, it's the only action in town as far as football is concerned. So you know there's going to be a lot of money flowing through on that game. But first of all, let's kind of take a look at things that happened yesterday. You know, yes, there's still baseball going on. And in case you didn't notice, and plenty of people are betting on it as well, the favorites went 9-6 yesterday, including the Mets, who were a minus 118 on the money line, beating the New York Yankees 7-6 on the Sunday night baseball game. I don't know how many people were watching it because you did have that Bears game on last night on NBC. Now, the biggest upset was by the Rockies. So the Denver people really have something to root about today. Not only their football team, but their baseball team as well. They were a plus 240 on the money line. And of course, they beat the Phillies. The favorites still lead, however. They're at 59.4% on the season. Got 49 games closing as pick'ems as well. The over-unders, they split. They were 7-7-1 with the push on that same Rockies-Phillies game at 9. The unders still hold the slim lead. They're at 50.2%. That's what happened yesterday in baseball. Meanwhile, of course, the NFL, the underdogs went 10-4 against the spread yesterday at 8 outright upsets, despite the Rams beating the Bears 34-14 on Sunday night as a 9-point home favorite. Now, they went over the betting total of 46, although the unders did lead 9-5 for the entire day, including that Cowboys covering in their 31-29 loss at the Bucs on Thursday night. The Dogs are 11-4 against the spread so far in week one. The unders lead 9-6 heading into Monday Night Football. So more NFL information because, you know, the whole story is this. We talked about this the other day. Last year, if you listen to the show, as the season started out, the Dogs really just dominated. The first 4 weeks, the Dogs were really howling loud and clear. And it's the same thing again this year, starting out the same way. It's a good time of the year, good time of the season to become and be a contrarian bettor like we are here at the Sports Wagering Zone. So the Dogs started the day by going 7-2 against the spread in those early games, including 6 upsets. The Steelers, the Texans, the Cardinals, the Chargers, the Eagles, and the Bengals, and even the Lions, who are 9.5-point underdogs, rallying for that unlikeliest backdoor cover of 41-33, even though they did lose to the 49ers, but they did cover as well. So early San Francisco backers, okay, and guys that are in contests that are throughout the country covered. The line was 7.5 at Circus Sports. So sometimes it kind of changes, depends on where you are in the country. The unders started 6-3. In the afternoon games, the dogs went 3-1 against the spread, with the Saints a 3.5-point dog upsetting the Packers 38-3. Their relocated game in Jacksonville. They played in Jacksonville because of all the flooding situation that took place in New Orleans over the past week or so. The Dolphins, 3.5-point dog, holding off the Patriots 17-16, and the Browns, a 5.5-point dog, covered in that 33-29 game against the Chiefs. They did lead through most of the game, but they wound up losing. But they only wound up losing by 4 points. Now, the unders, they were also 3-1 in the afternoon situation as well. So betting the underdogs was definitely the way to go in week one. Now, as we're here, as big dog people here at the show, okay? So we had a lot of good weekend news to tell you about. And as far as the dogs are concerned, they were barking loud and clear. So let's take our first break. And if you've listened to the show before, we take 3 breaks within the show, right? Each one is a minute duration. And of course, when we come back, we're going to take a look at a close-up and personal look at the game on tap for tonight between the Baltimore Ravens and the Las Vegas Raiders. So we're going to take that break. It's a 1-minute duration. And of course, like I said, if that is the case, and it is, because I would say it is, we'll be back in 1 minute. And welcome back. Here we go again. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. Thank you very much for listening. We're coming to you live right here from Denver, Colorado, the Mile High City, on I-95, the sports and entertainment to take a look at for today. So we don't have any kind of situations to talk about there. So we're talking NFL. We got Monday Night Football tonight. And of course, we talked last week how historically it's been a great time to buy low on NFL underdogs. And of course, the way it is, true to form, the dogs went again 10-4 against the spread yesterday. They had 8 outright wins. 8 outright wins out of those games. This was music to the ears of us contrarian bettors, okay? The sports books, they love it. Remember, understand something once again. We keep telling you this. If you're betting as a contrarian, you're betting with the sports books. The sports books want the contrarians to win because that's when they win, okay? They enjoyed a monster day yesterday as far as money was concerned that they took in. Now, including Thursday night's cover by the Cowboys, okay, that was against the Bucks, the underdogs are now at 11-4 against the spread. That's a little over 73%. That's a heck of a way to start the season. Now, the week one dogs improved to 56.5% over the past 10 years. They have been this way. The unders also cashed in for the contrarians as well, doing 9-5 overall as well. So you kind of see The dogs bark real early. And one of the reasons for that is because, once again, like everybody else, the sports books deal with different data that they put together, and they finally come up with a number. That number is a guess, okay? They try it out. The number goes out, and it takes a while for them to catch up. It takes them sometimes 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, before they finally get data that's relevant and more useful. Right now, they're dealing off of information from last season, which was a crazy season, you have to admit, okay, because of COVID-19. The stats are all over the place. It's kind of crazy. And, and in one way, I don't uh, admire what they have to do, because it's a heck of a job trying to put something together from information that is vague as it can be. But as the weeks come in, things start taking shape, they start getting better. The numbers they start putting out become much more closer and much more realistic. So at this point in time, for the first few weeks of a season, whether it's baseball or football, again, talking about baseball, if you remember back in April, if you listen to the show then, the dogs dominated the month of April. And then as we got into May and June, July and August, the favorites started taking over and wound up being ahead at 59% for the season so far as baseball is concerned. So this is no different. So the dogs really barked loud and clear yesterday. They'll probably be barking loud and clear for the next couple of weeks. But in the meantime, let's look at tonight's game. The Baltimore Ravens and the Las Vegas Raiders. It's the Monday night game. It's the first Monday night game, and you got a pair of playoff teams that are hopeful to get into the playoffs, and they're looking to start their season right off on their right foot. They want to get right back into the action, get right to the top, and get it going. The Ravens went 11-5 last year. They upset the Titans 2013 in the wild card round before they lost to the Bills 17-3 in that divisional round. Meanwhile, the Raiders, they went 8-8 in their first season as they moved to Las Vegas last year, missing the playoffs for the fourth consecutive season. The Raiders started last season 6-3 before they went down 2-5 down the end of the season. So they started out 6-3, wound up going 2-5 towards the end. Now, the line for tonight's game, it opened with Baltimore, listed as a 4-point road favorite. The public sees this game as an easy win and an easy cover situation because of Lamar Jackson and that team, which was put together, and they're happy to lay the points with Baltimore. Now, there's heavy, lopsided betting, and it pushed Baltimore up from being a 4 to a 4.5-point favorite. But then a bunch of Ravens injuries started coming in, and you mix that together with some pro money coming in on the Raiders, getting the hook in that game, dropped the line back down to 4. Now, Baltimore's going to be missing their running backs, J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Plus, their starting cornerback, Marcus Powers, he won't be playing as well. So as last we've seen before we came on the air, one of the houses in Vegas has now gone to 4, although most of them are at 3.5. Now, the Raiders have also value as a contrarian because they're an unpopular dog in a heavily bet primetime game. Primetime games draw a lot of money. Primetime games draw a lot of public reaction. A lot of public money comes in. A lot of public biases come in. Las Vegas also matches the red hot week 1 dog system, which is 11-4, like we said, against the spread this season, and almost 57% over the past 10 years. So it's not something new. It's not something just now. It's been going on for 10 years. Also, the buy low week 1 dogs who missed the playoffs in the past season are 8-2 against the spread so far this season, and they're 75-54 against the spread over the past 10 years, which is over 58%. So the Raiders, they enjoyed the home field advantage for the first time in their Vegas history after no fans, of course, were allowed last year because of COVID-19. So this way, this is the first game of their tenure there in Vegas where you're going to have a crowd just screaming and hollering and going crazy. So pros also in this game, they seem to be leaning on the under in this game as well. The total opened at 51, dropped down to 50, despite most of the bets coming in as an over. But the pros are looking at the under. So this kind of lets you know that that's the direction that they are going. So once again, in this game between the Baltimore Ravens, Las Vegas Raiders, the pros are on the Las Vegas Raiders, and they're also on the under in this game. And like I said, before we came on the air, we checked, and one or two of the houses now in Las Vegas are at 4, making the Raiders a 4-point dog. Most of them are still at 3.5. So again, depending on which part of the country you're from, if you're in the Baltimore area, you might see a little different number than you will at a Las Vegas, obviously, okay? Because that's where that fan base is, and that's where they pour their money in. So that's the story there, okay? So it's been a great weekend. If you're a contrarian, if you like to bet the favorites, you really took it on the chin this time. So yeah, there's always next week. You never know. Things do change, and they change rapidly. The whole idea is to stay ahead of the change, or as soon as the change happens, that's when you jump on that change. But in the meantime, like they have been over the past 10 years, the dogs have been very dominant when you get to week 1 of the NFL season. Like you remember from last year, not only week 1, but 2, 3, and 4 were very, very profitable weeks for dog bettors last season. So that's the story as far as the NFL this past weekend is concerned, as far as tonight's game is concerned. But also, we want to take a look at what Chris Andrews, who's the head sports director over at South Bay in Las Vegas, to try to let you know how he came up with these numbers as well. So let's take our second break. Let's get that out of the way. We come back, we'll talk about that. We'll talk a little bit more about what happened this weekend and try to see what may be coming ahead. So just to give you an idea, break number 2, 1 minute. We'll be back in 60 seconds. And welcome back. Here we go again. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. We're coming to you live right here from the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado. Like I said, they're very happy in Denver today. Not only did their Broncos come in and win their first September game in the past 3 years, 3 years in a row. They've never won a game in September, the entire month of September. This was the first time they did it. So, kind of give you an idea as to how well they did. And of course, the Rockies pulled off a big upset yesterday. So, if you were a Denver bettor yesterday, you did very, very, very well. Anyway, let's take a look and see what Chris Andrews has to say. He's, of course, the sports director over at Southgate over in Las Vegas, Nevada. So let's see what his report says about it. It's not very much, not a very big report because there's not much there to say, except that the Baltimore Ravens, who are 3.5, 4-point favorite in this game. The over-under is at 50.5, somewhere in that area, again, depending which part of the country you're in. So he says that he opened Baltimore as a 4.5-point favorite earlier in the year, okay, somewhere around May or June. The pros took the Raiders at 4.5 and 4. Now, when Baltimore suffered those injuries in practice the other day, he dropped the line down to 3.5 because of that news. Now, nobody played back on the favorite over the weekend, and he's had a lot of small bets so far coming in. The Sharps took the under in his game as well, so he adjusted that number as well. So once again, you're seeing how the changes occurred. He opened it at 4.5. Baltimore, 4.5-point favorite. The pros came in. They took the Raiders at 4.5. So then he dropped it to 4. They still came in with their money and took it at 4. So finally, he had to drop it down to 3.5, not only because of the money that was coming in, but the fact that there were some injuries, some key players on the Baltimore Ravens got hurt and will not be playing today. So the number dropped to 3.5. So I kind of give you an idea how that put together. We try to keep up to date on what Chris says in his report, as he does every week. We try to relay it to you as it is towards the games that we're talking about. And hopefully you get to understand how these lines have developed, how they started out. And they, like I said, they usually start out very simply. They go over the data from the past season, what's been going on with the trades, in the drafts, things that have been going on. They factor in all that information. Each house uses different percentages for whatever. And then when everything is all kind of put together, they finally have to come up with a number. And most of the time, it's a number that they may not be totally happy with because the information they're getting is outdated. Okay. And because last season, especially, was a brutal season as far as COVID was concerned. So, a lot of the data from last year isn't really as accurate as it would have been if it had been for the COVID-19. So, going in with that, they're making a calculated guess to a certain degree as to what they want the opening line to be. And again, like they have done in the past 10 years, usually the first and second weeks, because of this incongruity with data and what's available, they usually wind up on the short end of the stick, but they do wind up winning in the end because the favorites are not doing all that well. So in a way, I guess you could say they're doing the right thing because they're the ones that are coming ahead. So remember, whenever the dogs are winning, that's when the casinos are winning. They're losing their shirts for a certain degree when the favorites are winning during that time period. So as far as yesterday was concerned, they cleaned up yesterday. They have one more game to go today. That'll be at the end of week 1. It looks like its happy days are back in sportsbook land once again. So that's the story as far as that's concerned. And that's the story for tonight. And just to review it once again, the pros are on the Las Vegas Raiders in this game. They're at 4, 3.5 at some houses, depending on where you can get them. And of course, they're also on the under in this game as well. So that's the story for this week. And we had a great weekend as far as contrarian betting is concerned. We here at the Sports Wagering Zone, we're huge contrarians. We kind of believe we kind of go in that direction. So that's the story here as well. So let's take our final break and we come back. We're going to take a look at some thoughts and ideas about what has happened as far as gambling is concerned in the States since the decision has been made, how the various new sports books have come into play, and how they're of some help to you as a bettor as well. So let's get that final break out of the way. And just a reminder, to get a hold of us here at the show, very simple. Just send an email and send it to the sports wagering zone at gmail.com. That's the sports wagering zone at gmail.com. If you have any comments, you want to make some points or whatever, be happy to hear from you. If you have any questions, we'll try to get the answers for you. If we don't have the answers, we know where to get them. So let's get that final break out of the way, and we'll be back in 1 minute. And welcome back. Here you go. We're back again in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. We're coming to you live right here from the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado, on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Also podcasting on most of your major podcast platforms. We're here every day, Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And of course, on Saturdays and Sundays, we're on at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You know, with these single game sports betting, now that it's illegal, okay, and it's really operating in at least 23 states, including Wyoming, and even Canada is also involved in legalized sports betting as well. You know, it's hard to drive through 3 consecutive states without having a chance to make a bet. In other words, it it's almost hard to find where you can go through 3 states or more or less, okay, because there's so much of it available to you. So there's really, no excuse for not making any wagers anymore like it used to be in the past. The sports betting market has grown so exponentially since the legalization took place back in 2018, if you remember, and it even continues to grow and more at a really rapid pace. $20 billion is estimated to be legally wagered in the United States now on NFL and college football this season. Just on those 2 sports, they're looking at $20 billion to be wagered on NFL and college football sports this season. Now, you look at New Jersey, and it's no big surprise, having grown up in New Jersey, lived a good part of my life in New Jersey. It's not unusual that it emerged as the biggest market for sports betting. In fact, that was the state that actually petitioned the Supreme Court to make a decision because they lost the lower court decision in trying to get legalized betting in the state of New Jersey. They lost that case. They decided to take it to the Supreme Court, and it was the New Jersey case that actually wound up winning it all for everybody else. Okay. Now, it's a title that may kind of give in to New York once New York really gets their act together with their mobile sports program and everything else going into next year, because they had all those problems with their governor, things of that nature. So some of this stuff kind of got pushed back on the back burner. But once New York gets into play, you got Manhattan and all the boroughs, and you have the entire state. it's more than likely that you may see New York emerging even more so than New Jersey, even though New Jersey's on top right now. Now, that increased competition has led to more regionalization of sports betting and a lot more options for you guys that are betting. So I want to take a look at the expanded markets as far as betting is concerned. Okay. Now, one thing is for sure this season, WinBet was the first sports book to offer a market for exact win totals for NFL teams before other sportsbook finally followed. Okay. Typically, as a bettor, you could wager whether an NFL team will win over or under a certain number of games. Okay, we call it the over under situation. The Giants win total, for example, is 7 at DraftKings Sportsbook. The Jets are 6. WinBet was the first book to offer bettors the ability to wager on how many wins the Giants would actually have. Okay, at plus 325 on the money line for 8 wins, or 4-1 for 9 wins, and 10-1 for 5 wins are most of the options as far as that one situation was concerned. So instead of saying over or under, you could actually pick the number that you think it's going to be, and you can bet it that way if you have your deal with Win Sportsbook. And there are other ones that also do the same thing, because Alan Berg, he's the senior trading manager over at WinBet. He says from all his early days working behind the counter as a sportsbook guy, tourists were always asking, because that's Vegas was the only place you could do it at that point in time, were always asking, can I bet my team to win 10 games this season? Of course, at that time you couldn't. Okay. Now, all different regulations are different in different states, and they've allowed these markets to see what they can come up with. Now, which team will Aaron Rodgers take his first snap from? Or which team will Cam Newton play for next year? All these different prop bets. Some states allow them, some states don't, some states limit them. You have to look and see wherever you are as to what the situation is. And of course, with fantasy football taking off, it's led to an increase in the prop bets as well, offered in almost every game. Over unders, passing yardage. How many passing yards will Daniel Jones have? How many passing yards over under will Aaron Rodgers have? These are all different things that have become available to us as bettors, a variety of legal wagering options on NFL games. It's more than we've ever seen before. So you see, these props are really come in to be a big situation. So again, it's grown, it's still growing. There are going to be some more changes made as we go along. Hopefully, there are going to be more improvements, because that's the direction they've been going so far. So that's the story as far as the various sports books are concerned. There are some sports books that now allow you to pick the amount of games you think that the team is actually going to win, as opposed to going as an over or an under in that situation. So looking at tonight's game, once again, the pros in the game between the Baltimore Ravens and the Las Vegas Raiders, the pros in this game are on the Raiders. They're at +4, 3.5 at some situations, whatever you can do. If you're going to be betting with the Raiders, try to get the highest number you can. Right now, it looks like it's 4 out of Vegas. Okay. If you're looking to bet on the Ravens, you're looking for the lower number. Some of the houses are at 3.5. So that's the story. And they're also in on the under in this game as well. So it's been a great weekend. The dogs were barking loud and clear, did very, very well. We'll see what happens in week 2. We'll follow the lines on some of the games. We'll bring you up to date on them as the week goes. And hopefully, once again, once we get to Sunday, we can give you a good compilation of the various teams that are being picked by the pros, which games are being picked, and in which direction the money is flowing. So once again, thanks for listening. It's Monday. It's the start of the week. You got that big Monday night game tonight. It's going to be the big game. It's the only game in town. So it's going to be garnering a lot of interest and a lot of public money. So once again, thanks for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as podcasting on most of your major podcast platforms. Anyway, thanks for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So have a great Monday. And if you're betting, I hope you have a profitable Monday as well. Goodbye, everybody.